slavery?
Well, slavery, of course, is something which, was an expression to some degree of racism. It was the justification. Racism was there to justify, well, if these people are inferior to us, we may enslave them and take them, for our own purposes and uses. Western society has basically abolished it up until these times. And sometimes the finger is pointed at Muslims saying, well, Muslims didn't abolish it. The point is, of course, when Islam came, the institution of slavery existed in all corners of the world. Islam did not abolish that institution because that institution in and of itself was not necessarily evil unless people abused it or used it in an evil way. It became a means in the Muslim expansion, a means of absorbing prisoners of war into the society, as opposed to putting them in concentration camps, and other modes, or slaughtering them, etc. The Muslim society absorbed those other populations into their main population in that way. And so it was not uncommon to find people who were former slaves who become freed, rising to the top levels of scholarship amongst the big scholars in Islamic thought, etc., were people who were former slaves. The rulers of the Abbasid period, Abbasid Empire and dynasty, the majority of the rulers were children of slaves. Their mothers were slaves. This is reality. So I mean, in the societies that where slavery is an unrestricted practice, where a master may do with his slave as he wishes. He wants to maim the slave, mark the slave, brand the slave, do anything, kill the slave. He's free to do it because it's his slave. That society, of course, is completely evil. Whereas in Islamic society, it's not permitted. A man who, because he's a slave master, doesn't mean that he may do anything he wishes with that slave. There are laws governing and ensuring the rights of that slave. There is also in the zakah system to purchase the freedom of the slave. The slaves may earn their own freedom, etc. As a means of, as I said, reintegrating them into the society. Even with the origin of man, that it is stated in the Quran that when Satan was told to bow before Adam in recognition of the superiority of Adam, his response was, I am better than him. You created him from clay. And you created me from fire. This is the initial expression of racism. I am superior. You see, so this is an ancient satanic way of thinking. And this has been inherited and been passed down and been fed into societies, all through the generations. Islam stands against it by insisting that the criterion for judgment of people is that of fearing of God, and not that of color, etc. And the Prophet, may God's peace be upon him, of his wives, he married people from the different racial groups. He married Egyptians, married former Jewish people. He did not make those distinctions. He had his most closest companion, adopted son, was Zayd ibn Haritha, who was a former slave. And his son Usama ibn Zayd, his mother was black, and this was closest to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. His muaddin, the main one calling people to prayer, Bilal, was also black. So I mean, so much of that infusion and mixture which took place in early Islam, it stands as an example for all of the generations to come.
So you think that Islam, if introduced into Western countries, will help all these countries to overcome slavery and racism and all sorts of stuff that we have mentioned before?
Without a doubt. Malcolm X, a product of racism in the United States, when he made Hajj and saw the diversity of human beings all coming together based on that belief in one God, when he returned to America, he said he realized for the first time that the only solution for the problems, racial problems, etc., of America was Islam.
Thank you, Dr. Bilal. Thank you very much for giving us much of your time. And thank you, listeners and viewers, for watching us today. And we'll continue with another episode next time. It's goodbye for now.